Hi, everyone. It's Nicole. How are you guys? Okay, we have a great session today, a great live. I've decided to do FAQs today. I have a few lined up, but I don't want this to go so long. We'll see how many we get to, but there's two in particular that I want to address. One has to do with promotions. These are commonly asked questions. So either I am coaching people through these issues, or even as I'm networking and I'm talking to a lot of professionals, when I say, what is your biggest challenge? What is the thing that keeps you up at night? These are the two things that keep coming up. So one of them has to do with promotions, which is I've been trying to get promoted and I can't. I've been here for 3 years. I feel like I'm not being recognized. I keep getting told that I'm close, but it's not actually happening. Or I'm getting vague feedback from management about my prospects and that, they just don't know what to do. Basically, I want to get promoted. I want to move up the ladder and I can't. The second question I want to talk about today is something that relates to career change, which is I want to make a career change. I've been in a particular industry or a particular channel for a while, and I've moved up the ranks and it's been good, but I don't like it anymore. For whatever reason, I'm not challenged. There aren't really any more advancement opportunities. There's no more growth here. I've done everything that I can, whatever it may be. Whatever the reason is that you want to make a change, the interesting thing is people are asking me, how can I make a change at this point in my career without having to sacrifice or compromise on anything I've actually attained, right? So you want to make a change because there are things that you don't like, but you really don't want to give up the things that you do like. I get these questions all the time. So I want to take this opportunity to answer those. And before we get into it, if you haven't checked out the Facebook Live from yesterday, it's on my page, but I'm introducing, so this is kind of a side note. I'm introducing a membership in September. So this is something that's going to be at least $50 a month. Then you get access to me. There's going to be some group coaching. There's going to be online courses. There's going to be all this stuff that you will have access to. So for people who want to do just more situational coaching with me and don't want to enter into a formal coaching engagement because that can be, thousands of dollars of an investment, this might be the way to go. And people have been asking me for it for a while, so I decided to go ahead and do it. I'm launching it in September. Super excited about it. But for my followers and for people on my email list, I am actually putting this out there that you can be a founding member and just pay one time for lifetime access. And it's only $249. And, I think I said this on the Facebook Live yesterday, when I sent out that email to my followers, I got a couple of responses that were $249 for what? Per what? And I said, no, not per anything. $249, one time only. And you will get new content every month, access to me, situational coaching, pair-ups for networking. I will actually broker networking introductions among members, all kinds of good stuff. So check that out. It was yesterday's Facebook Live on the Aurelian Coaching page. It's pinned to the top. Or if you're not already on my email list, you'll go ahead and get on the email list. Go to aureliancoaching.com and I'll make sure that you get those emails. Okay, are you ready for the FAQ? Okay, so let's tackle the first one, which is how do I get promoted? There are a couple of different issues that are going on here. One is that, and it's, it's always hard to diagnose because I'm not in the room when people are getting this feedback from their management. But so a lot of times I'm just reading between the lines. And these are often these situations where I am the bringer of bad news, right? So, but this is why I coach. I'm going to be totally upfront with you. And a lot of times, if you are gunning for a promotion and your management is giving you vague feedback, or they are somebody I talked to the other day said that the feedback that they got was, well, there's room for advancement in this organization, but you really have to define that opportunity for yourself. Yeah, that's a cop-out. That's a cop-out. If there was a clear path to that person, their skill set being leveraged in management, believe me, they would define that pathway for you. Okay. So when they're giving you vague language or kind of putting it off, I had another client who constantly got, after 3 performance reviews, wasn't getting anywhere with promotions. And they kept saying, oh, you're almost there, but not quite. Do this. And then he would go do the thing, but then not get the promotion. And then they would say, well, almost here, do this, and we'll see how it goes. And then he would go do the thing and he still wouldn't get promoted. And I have to tell them, guys, they are not planning to promote you. They're not planning to promote you. Okay. Now, there are a couple of things that you can do with that. Either, maybe three things that you can do with that. Either you like so many other things about the company and about the job and about the people that you work with and the actual day-to-day work that you're doing, which is maybe why you've been there for so long despite not getting promoted, that maybe you should consider just enjoying your work and enjoying the people and enjoying the salary that you're getting, and stop chasing after something that hasn't happened up until this point and is not likely to happen. Okay. A lot of people, for whatever reason, don't actually put this consideration on the table, when I think you should at least consider it, right? A lot of people are chasing titles and chasing more money for the sake of the chase, or for the sake of some external expectation or status, or if it's not going to make your life better necessarily, and you are actually enjoying other aspects, I would say put it on the table that you should actually consider not chasing after a promotion. Maybe that's an option for you, okay? The second thing that you may want to consider is, leaving. Just leave that organization and try to get a job elsewhere, and stop chasing after this thing, because especially if they're giving you a lot of vague feedback and you're not getting any clarity on what you need to do in order to advance, or you're doing all those things and still not getting promoted, I think, and remember that first option that I want you to consider. If you consider that first option and you decide that, no, I really want the promotion, for whatever reason, okay, now you need to start looking elsewhere. Stop chasing after something at that organization that is unlikely to happen, especially if you've been chasing it for a while. The writing's on the wall, okay? There are no plans to put you into management anytime soon, so you should be looking elsewhere. The third thing is, if you really do want to be promoted within the organization that you're in, This is what you need to do. There is obviously a disconnect between what you believe you need and have in order to justify that promotion versus what the leadership believes is necessary for an individual to be promoted into management or whatever it is, right? So there's a disconnect there. And a lot of times what I ask people is two sets of questions. One, I ask, and you can ask this of yourself. One is, what are your powerhouse talents? What are your strengths? The things that, without question, all of your people, all of your colleagues, all of your managers and your bosses and all of that kind of stuff say, oh yeah, he or she is absolutely known for X, Y, and Z. Those powerhouse talents, I want to make sure that you are able to identify those and those are validated. That not just, well, I think I'm good at this, but no, other people have said, no, he's really good at that, or she is really, really good at that. Okay. That's one question. The second question is, I want you to ask yourself what you think is required in that position that you're trying to get into. Okay. What do you think a good leader in that position would do or be, or what skills they would have, right? How do you think you would be successful in that role? What does success look like there? Okay, so put those two questions aside and then ask the exact same two questions with putting yourself in your boss's shoes, in leadership's shoes. So put aside what you think your powerhouse talents are and say, for that position that I'd like to have, if I were the hiring manager, right? If I were the boss, these are the powerhouse talents that particular position would require. And again, if you're getting into your boss's head about this, what would somebody in that position do to prove that they're successful? What does success look like in that role? Now, you have answers to two sets of questions. This is where you compare and contrast, okay? So where you have powerhouse talents and they overlap with the powerhouse talents that would be required in that position that you're gunning for, fantastic. Excellent. But where there's a gap, okay, now you know what you need to work on, okay? Same thing with your understanding, your appreciation, your assessment of what success looks like in that role. I had somebody, I was talking to somebody the other day who was dealing with this issue, or maybe it was last week, who was dealing with this issue. And he said, his answer to the first question was, well, I think a good person in that role, what success looks like, is being supportive of their team and availability and making sure that their team is successful and has all the resources and the things that the team needs in order to be successful. But then when I asked him, well, what do you think, company leadership believes that role requires and what would be successful there? And he's like, it's all numbers. All I care about are numbers. Yeah, well, how do you reconcile that? There is a way to reconcile it, by the way. But the whole point of the exercise is if you really do want to position yourself for advancement within an organization, you have to reconcile the gaps and the disconnect between what you think you can deliver and what your particular strengths and talents are, and what management is thinking, what leadership is thinking, and what they are looking for. If there's a gap there, you need to reconcile that gap. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful. So this is all about promotion. Number one, consider maybe you don't want a promotion and it's okay. Number two, if you're not getting it with your current organization, look elsewhere. And number three, if you really do want to make a final push for promotion within your organization, you're going to have to reconcile the gaps between what you believe you bring to the table and what you believe that position requires and what management, what your company leadership is actually looking for. And if you don't know, get the answer. Ask. What are you guys looking for? If you think that they're really looking for just numbers, anybody who can bring in sales, will confirm that, right? Confirm. And then you need to work on bridging those two sets of answers to those questions so that you can position yourself well. Okay. So now I'm going on to the second most common question that I get, and this is about career changes. So I specialize in helping people in mid-career, which means that people have at least 10, 15 years of work experience under their belt in a particular industry. And what is happening is you're working 10, 15 years, and either you've hit a particular milestone, right? So it's a title, or maybe it's a salary, or there's something that you've been gunning for a while, and you finally got there, and then you kind of look around and go, this is really not what I wanted. Or you are right on the cusp of hitting some particular milestone. And now you're sort of like, well, before I jump into that, that's a whole other ballgame. Now I want to revisit. And I think now is the time to pursue something else rather than kind of being locked in to that milestone that I'd been shooting for so long. Okay. And when people are considering a career change, this is often because by the time you've been doing something for 10 or 15 years, you've acquired some status, you've acquired a certain, salary and benefit and flexibility situation. I mean, there can be any number of things that you've attained, that you've achieved up until this point. And so when you are considering a career change, a lot of people are like, well, I want to gain all this other stuff, but I don't want to lose. I don't want to compromise on what I have, attained up until this point. And so they say, so how do I do that? And I have to say that it's not likely. Okay, it's not likely. Anytime you make a shift, and in fact, the more significant the shift that you are considering, the more significant the trade-offs are that you're going to have to negotiate. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible, right? I mean, of course, there are people who have changed industries and have made a lateral move in terms of salary and benefits. Fantastic. I'm not saying that if that opportunity comes along that you shouldn't take it, or that you can't work your way into that. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of networking and a lot of elbow grease. And in the meantime, you still have to fulfill the duties and responsibilities and the obligations that you have in your current job. You still need to perform while at the same time doing all the work that you need to do on the side to kind of craft that ideal change, that ideal career shift for yourself. So that's a lot of work and a lot of elbow grease, right, to put into that process. So really what ends up happening is I coach people through negotiating trade-offs. First, just accept if you don't want to put all the work into kind of crafting that ideal shift that might take a year, 2 years, 3 years, if that is too long, okay, and you want to make a career shift sooner than that, then you're going to have to understand the trade-offs and really have an appreciation for those trade-offs, which means a couple of things. So what does that actually mean on the ground? Number one, a lot of people, when they think of a career change, they think of ideals, right? So what is this ideal situation that I want to be in? I'm going to pursue this passion, and I'm going to find myself in a situation with lots of growth and lots of opportunity, and I'm going to be in learning mode again, and it's going to be so exciting, but I'm still going to make 6 figures because I'm not going to start at the bottom, right? So, I'm willing to compromise a little bit on salary, but not very much. So it's stuff like that. Don't worry about the ideals. It's okay to go through the exercise where you're kind of thinking about, wow, well, what would be my best landing spot? That is a great exercise, but it's not particularly useful on its own when you are considering a career change, and where the whole point of this is that you have to learn how to negotiate trade-offs. A more important and useful exercise is to understand what your minimums are, right? So know where your line in the sand is for salary. What is the dollar figure that you are unwilling to go under? You are unwilling to compromise. That is going to be way more helpful for you in navigating a career change than saying pie in the sky. I'd love to maintain my salary and maybe even get a little bit more, who knows? Really understand what your minimums are. And the reason this is so important is because when you are doing a career shift, what happens is that if you don't have a clear understanding of your foundation, what your minimum requirements are, what your absolutes are, then when you start looking at job postings and doing some networking, maybe interviewing, or even when you get a contract, an offer letter, all of that stuff clouds your assessment. It clouds your decision making, because without an understanding of what your minimums are, you have nothing to compare it to. Is this good? I don't know, right? It probably isn't my ideal. So if it's not your ideal and you have no idea what your minimum is, now suddenly your North Star about what direction you should go in is easily moved with external information that's being put in front of you, right? And so you don't want that to happen. You don't want the information that the potential employer is putting in front of you to dictate what good is, right? You want to have an idea of what good is. And then that is the lens through which you're evaluating those options, right? So when considering a career change, number one, I want you to get comfortable with the idea that it's fine to do a pie in the sky scenario of what your ideal is, but more likely, 90% of the time, maybe even more, what you're really talking about are trade-offs. And when you're talking about trade-offs, it's really important to understand across all these domains and these categories what your minimum requirements are, because you can't negotiate trade-offs without understanding the minimums. So do that first, okay? And these domains could be, I've been using salary, but it could be travel requirements. It could be, requirements that you're in the office. Do you have to be there 9 to 5? What if you need to pick up the kids from daycare at 3? Like, is there any flexibility there? Like, you have to define exactly what the minimums are in order to consider what actually happens and what the opportunities are in a career change. So hopefully that's helpful. I've hit upon the 2 most common questions, and I've been talking for a while. So if you guys like these types of FAQs, let me know, and I'll pull a few others for future Facebook Lives. And one more reminder, check if you're interested in being a founding member of my membership, which is launching in September, and you'll get all of this information, but really deep dive stuff, and to be personally coached by me without having to invest in a huge old, individual coaching engagement. I think the membership might work for you. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Go ahead and check out the last Facebook Live. It's on the Aurelian Coaching Facebook page. I really enjoy talking to you guys, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.